color of this floral. Is it good or no, you think? Yeah, because it's too tall, you know? Let me just try it. Get your opinion right here. Just give me a second. Oh yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Yeah, I figured I'd join you guys. Where are we going? A pool party.
Yeah, he's. Oh my! Oh shit! Oh my! You gotta be. He's disqualified. He lost by disqualification. Watch this. He had it. Yeah, he's. Oh my! Oh shit! Oh my! You gotta be. He's disqualified. He lost by disqualification. Watch this. He had it. Oh! Holy shit! There is beer. They're throwing beer from the stand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hero Wars!
Wow.
Yeah.
Try jumping, ho! Try to fucking jump in! I bet! Try it! I got another one! Come on! You stupid bitch! Come on, bitch! Come on! Try jumping, ho! Try to fucking jump in! I bet! Try it! I got another one! You stupid bitch!
Yo, this guy's a fucking pervert. You're a pervert. This guy's a... Yo, you're going on the internet. I will. Yo, this guy's a Skinner. Looking for a little kid named Alex. He's looking for a little boy named Alex. He pulled up in my driveway asking for a little kid named Alex.
Okay, social media, while checking out the house, I saw this like little, I look like a little ticket booth. I think that's where the milk delivery.
Oh my god!
Keep the shackles on my feet so I can dance, yeah. Put your peace inside my heart, stretch my hands. Know you're carrying me through life when I can't stand, no. Got a promise for my life, I trust your plans. Everything changed, you stayed the same. I broke, you took the pain. Washed away my sins so that this world won't leave me stained. I know you're king above all kings.
Did you know that current
Oh, fuck.
Fuck!
Oh, fuck.
Fuck!
You got it.
Don't get drawn to that, please.
I'm seeing a body laying down, legs spread at the bottom just a little bit, and it looks like footsteps in the mud leading up to this object in the water, right? That's what it looks like to me. Now, I could be totally wrong. This could just be a tree, a stump, anything. But man, it looks like something, and the measurements are correct. 6 foot-ish. That's what he, how tall he was. So, I'm actually out of breath because I'm trying to get back. We're running out of daylight, and I want to get this done. So, next step, we're going to get the underwater drones, and we're going to go back to the site, and we're going to send it down. Since it's only 4 feet deep, we can, might actually put the dry suit on and just wade out in the water. Water's freezing. It's like 44 degrees. But, I mean, we're not going to go swimming all day, so we can get it done. One way or another, we're going to figure it out. So let's get the drone unpacked, see what's down there. All right, so we reached the spot right where this tree is at. Pretty much straight out, right? He'll be able to figure it out, but can't really see any indentions, mud in the water right here, but I don't know. It looks pretty interesting. You driving? You gonna drive? Oh, you guys can drive. I'll acquire. You drive. Right? Yep. That's all you really need. Okay.
It was just for a second, but where's the drone at? I just saw a shoe. There's his foot. You see his boot. That's that tan shoe they was talking about. Yeah. You find him? Where's his leg? Yeah, we found him. I don't know if y'all want to see it or not. Was his pants? Mm-hmm. Going down to his shoe? Okay.
Oh, it is. Those are his ankles.
Mm-hmm.
So where is it? Bring the drone straight up and see if we can get a good mark.
Right. You can kind of see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
see
pretty much straight out from this tree, I guess.
Yep.
You can't miss it. I'm seeing a body laying down, legs spread at the bottom, just a little.
G'day friends and fellow residents of the South Waikato. Another video from me, a couple of things to talk about this time. Important things. I'm going to start.
Welcome to Miniature Masters.
Okay, we're here now.
It's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It's bigger and better than I.
That's why you watch what you do.
Now we can fight for real if you want to fight. Let's go outside.
All right, so what's your record in the street? In the streets of Jerusalem, I'm 20-0, and I'm ready to make it 21.
Who are you gonna dedicate this fight to today?
I dedicate this fight to me and my country, and I'm coming to take you down today. Don't push me, bro. Dude, shit. Come on. Shit. You wanna punch now? Shit.
That's why you watch what you do. How are you gonna beat me?
I bench 500 pounds, squat 700 pounds, and you're what, like 120 pounds wet? It's not gonna be nothing. I'm just gonna hit you hard and you're gonna go to sleep.
All right, let's go.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. That didn't hurt.
Come on. What? Come on. That's it?
Stop running. Stop running. You just running. That's all
I'm not.
you doing.
Come on, you gotta catch me.
That's all you doing.
Come on.
That's all you doing.
What? Who's running? Come on.
I'm not playing. This is a game. This is a game. Let's fight for real.
Bro, you just lost. What are you talking about?
Let's go outside.
What are you...
Let's go outside.
All right, get...
Let's go outside. Come on, let's go outside. Come on. Come on.
You can go.
Yeah, come on. Let's go outside. Nah, you scared.
All right, dude. That's why you watch what you do.
Now we can fight for real.
Would you be open to an electoral deal with, say, Labor would come to you and say, 'cause that's traditionally a Labor seat?
No. I don't think we really can't, because it's different from the whole ACT national thing.
They're aligned, right?
Yeah, and that they were picking a side. That's where they wanted to go. One of the kind of key reasons for us existing is to hold both sides accountable. To pick one side over the other, we lose our leverage.
Would you be open to an electoral deal with, say, Labor would come to you and say, 'cause that's traditionally a Labor seat?
No. I don't think we really can't, because it's different from the whole ACT national thing.
They're aligned, right?
Yeah, and that they were picking a side. That's where they wanted to go. One of the kind of key reasons for us existing.
I built this website on Base 44. And if
Do you know what, guys? 17 years ago, I became a mum to this.
You like that, huh? That's what they like. Train trips, big whips, big dogs with them big chips.
Hey guys, so 17 years ago I became a mum to this guy. She's a patched up gangster for the dumpties. Do you know what? We found the cutest little
I have a new boyfriend.
What do you need?
Nothing.
Let's go together. I'm working.
No, okay.
Are you waiting for someone?
No.
I like you.
Oh, you like me?
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah? What do you have?
Premium.
What's your name?
Oh.
Where? Leave it. What happened?
Oh, sorry.
What happened?
Sorry.
It's fine, it's fine. Natila.
I'm sorry.
Bye-bye.
No.
Bye-bye.
I'm sorry.
We have some WhatsApp.
No.
Ladies, all you have to do is fart and they go away.
I don't need boyfriend.
What do you need?
Nothing.
Hmm? Let's go together, some walking.
No, I'm okay.
A bar security guard in Southern California, SHOT a man in the face at close range with a stun GUN. On June 24th, a young man with bare upper body got into a conflict with 42-year-old security guard David Marquez. A bar security guard in Southern California, SHOT.
How's it going, sir? Doing good, man.
Get your driver's license?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Reason I stopped you to go tag.
Yeah, so I'm doing a test ride for the dealership. Okay. Yeah, so the Mountain Motorsports, like right down whatever the hell that road is. Yeah, that's the place. I'm doing a test ride. I actually do motorcycle reviews of the bikes, so I've been doing it for like 8 years now. Okay. So here's the thing. I've known that at some point.
Okay, so the cool thing about this one is that the
Took the shackles on my feet so I can dance, yeah. Put your peace inside my heart, stretched by hands.
Hey, it's Jessie from Screeching Ink, and in this mini course, which is an introduction into screen printing, we're going to cover the following subjects. The first one is going to be artwork preparation, then we're going to talk about coating your screen and the exposure, then we're going to look at screen printing technique, and finally I'm going to run you through cleanup and reclamation of your screens. So we get asked a lot what screen printing is, and it might be more useful to understand what it is used for. So most commonly we use it to print t-shirts, but it's also really common to use it for printing posters, limited edition artworks, all the way through to signage and printing onto metals and plastics. It's essentially a stencil technique where there's open mesh next to closed mesh, and I'm going to show you how to make your screens. So before we start printing and breaking down our artwork, we need to make sure that your design is screen printable. So on the computer, I'm going to show you 5 common artwork types and how I'd approach them and break those down. We've created this template for you guys so you can distinguish the different artwork types and maybe understand how we'd print those different artworks. So this is called the artwork cheat sheet, and it's a download on the website, and you should have received it when you downloaded this mini course. So let me go on to the most simple one, which is this single color image example. So I'll just zoom in here. Okay, so for a single color print, you actually only need one screen, and the open areas of mesh are going to be this black area, and it's the most simple way of printing because you don't have all that kind of registering and lining up all the different colors on top of each other perfectly to build up that image. For a simple design like this, so I'm saying not crazy fine detail, you'd probably just use a screen with a 43T mesh, which is a 110 in the US, and then if you're printing onto paper, you'd want to bump that up to a 90T mesh screen, because that will deposit a thinner layer of ink on that paper. So in the US, a 90T mesh is 230. The difficulty level is definitely low on this one. You can really just smash loads out and get printing straight away. You don't need any particular heavy-duty equipment or kit, and this is probably the entry in because it's the lowest cost to get started. Let's move on to this single colour halftone, this one here. So for photographic images, we tend to use a technique called halftoning. So halftone is where you expose lots of tiny dots, and the concentration of those tiny dots makes the image appear darker, and then when they're more dispersed, you can get those lighter tones. For example, in this image, it would be these central lines. They would have a sparse concentration of dots, and then it'll get darker and darker as those dots get closer together to give you these black areas. Again, you can just do this kind of black and white image with one screen, but you'd have to bump up the mesh count slightly to be able to take those really small dots, and that would be counted as fine detail screen printing. So if it was onto fabric, you'd go to a 62T mesh, and if it was onto paper, you could stick around that 90T again, and that kind of mesh would be able to hold those fine details. I also have a download for determining how fine your halftone should be according to the mesh type that you're printing with. Again, the difficulty level is actually quite low. It's still single color screen printing. You just have to maybe concentrate a little bit more on your angles when you're printing to deposit a thinner layer of ink. You don't need any more heavy duty kit, same with the single color printing, and you still got a low cost entry in there because again it might be hinge clamps if you're screen printing onto paper and things. Brilliant, let's go on to this next one. So this is an incredibly common type of artwork that we might be able to get in screen printing, and it's using spot colors. So this one is a vector image, and it's got maybe 4, 5, maybe even 6 different spot colors in there, and we might even get from a customer the Pantone reference for each of those colors to mix up. But again, they're just printing next to each other these spot colors to build up that artwork. The amount of screens needed for that is determined by how many colors are in the image, because we'd print the red and then the yellow, and then we'd finish it off with the black probably for this type of design. The mesh count for t-shirt printing for this kind of artwork is very likely to be 43T again, unless you're doing some areas of fine detail where you might want to bump it up. The difficulty level would increase, so it would be probably into the medium difficulty level, just to take account for lining up those layers and getting them spot on when you're registering. Heavy duty kit is optional because it will definitely make your life easier if you had something to hold those screens in place as you're printing and building up the artwork. For t-shirt printing, that would mean that you'd need a carousel because you have to hold this shirt down as you're building up the whole design, and you need the screens held in place for every colour that you're laying down. Again, the screen quantity is reliant on how complex that artwork is. The next image is something like a photorealistic image on a white background. So if I bring this over, when we're trying to recreate something like this, we would use the CMYK method. So that's essentially breaking the image down into 4 colours that interact with each other to build up the whole image. So we would print cyan, magenta, yellow and black. And black is represented by this K in printing. So we'd actually only need 4 screens to be able to recreate very detailed and colourful artwork like that one. The mesh count is going to be higher because there's fine detailed little dots that are going to sit next to each other and build up that artwork. The difficulty level is probably medium because essentially you only need to know how to register your prints nicely and just follow on from the basic print methods from before. Heavy duty kit. So if you were printing an image like this onto paper, you could fundamentally do it with hinge clamps, which wouldn't actually involve a huge cost. However, if you're going onto t-shirt printing, you need to constrain your screens on a carousel, so you need to have them held in place on the carousel as you build up those artworks and complexity of that design. So that is a really magical process and it's really incredibly fun to do. The next design that we're looking at is simulated process. So this is most commonly used in the t-shirt industry and it's definitely on the highest level of difficulty, mainly due to breaking down that image into the layers required. With simulated process, the mesh count is definitely going to be higher because you're dealing with lots of fine details and dots merging together to build up that artwork. And you will need some heavy duty kit, especially if you're printing t-shirts, because you'll need a carousel that can hold lots of screens and build up that artwork through printing all these different blends and colours and halftones on top of each other. So now we've understood the different types of artwork that you might be using, now we can discuss the quality of the images, and I want to tell you about the difference between vector and raster artwork. At the bottom of the cheat sheet, we've given you 2 examples of artwork that we've actually printed ourselves. There's a raster version and there's a vector version, so I just want to zoom in and show you the difference between them, because at this kind of scale you think they might be very similar to print with. So if I zoom right in, you can see that the artwork is made up of these little squares, so everybody can determine that they are pixels, and it's the concentration of pixels and the darkness of those pixels which build up the artwork. However, if you were to look at a vector version, so this is the vector version of the same kind of artwork, I zoom right in, there aren't any pixels to be found and the lines are super sharp. That actually does translate when you start screen printing, and these sharp layers can be transferred onto your t-shirts or your paper, and they can just come out that much crisper, and they're much easier to work with in terms of changing the colour of these designs. So if I can show you side by side, it's very apparent that the raster image would need some work on it, and the vector image is pretty much ready to go to print with, to get these nice sharp areas, and it's even a little bit roughened up with these contours on the lines, so it doesn't look too sterile and clean. So we often actually vectorize the raster images to make them into these nice clean examples for when we start printing. One use for raster images might be CMYK printing, where you do actually need to break that design up into the 4 layers to build it up again in terms of pixels and dots next to each other. However, I'm always going to choose the vector image for printing designs and artwork like this. In order to expose your screens, you're going to need your artwork printed onto transparent film just like this. So this film positive is really nice and pure black, and I'm going to show you how to achieve that on the computer. Have a look at my one. So this is the artwork that I'm going to choose to print today. So I'm just going to quickly show you how I prepare that for printing the film positives. So I'm going to take it out onto its own artboard. So I'm going to copy it and pop it on its own unique artboard by pasting it in there. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to check. So I want to print it at 22 centimeters wide. At the moment it's 193 up here, so I'm going to say 220 millimeters, which is 22 centimeters, just to scale it, just to make sure that's all perfect. And then I want to check that the black in here is pure. If the RIP software that I'm using notices any greys, it's going to want to halftone that for me. So to go around that, I can select an area of black, and then I can just, maybe I'll select same, fill, colour and stroke, just to select as much of that design as possible. And then I'm going to double check it by clicking this fill and making sure that it's all these zeros and not like up here in the greys where it would halftone. So all the way down into a corner until it reads all the zeros, and I can press OK. And now the RIP software is just going to print that as pure black. I also wanted just to try a little left chest version of my design, so I'm going to copy it over and make a 10 centimeter version as well, which I think would be quite cute. Just going to make sure the artboard is the right size, and I'm going to press print. And that's going to rip the image with accurate. So let me show you accurate. This is the RIP software, and that was the design just going through the RIP there. And that's going to send it straight to print, and we can check out what those film positives look like now. We're now going to show you how to coat and expose those screens. If you find that you don't have access to this kind of equipment, we do actually have a service where we can help you with your artwork called Artwork Perfection, and that involves making it a rich, pure black and just checking things like scales. And we also print people's film positives for them and send them out all over the country. This part of the video is about screen coating and exposure, but I'm outside at the moment because I want to show you a really important step before you coat your screens, which is degreasing them. And that basically means getting any dust, lint or grease off your mesh so that your emulsion will coat really, really nicely. So I'm just going to show you how I do that. So to degrease that screen, I'm going to use the Screen Degreaser by Framer. I'm going to wet the mesh, give it a couple of sprays and scrub it with the designated soft brush, like this. I'm going to get it really foamy and I'm going to rinse both sides, and that'll be it. So now my screen is completely dry after degreasing it. I'm ready to start coating. So I'm in my darkroom, and that doesn't actually mean that it's in pitch black. It just means that my bulb has a UV blocker on it so that it's not emitting, well, it's blocking out that UV light which would expose our screens prematurely. I've also got my silicone spatula, which I use for everything, which is perfect for this. And I've got the Pro Angle emulsion coater, which already has its ends like stuck in place, and this is the perfect size for these screens that I'm about to show you. I have my screen propped up against the wall, and we're going to be doing this flat side first, so that's the side that's facing me. So I'm all ready to go. Oh, you might want a rag or some blue roll handy, just in case you have a little spill that you want to quickly clean up. I just wanted to mention something else about our setup. So we've got this cool table that we made, and we put a rubber on the top so it doesn't slip when we put our screen there. And we've also screwed in some little batons at different angles so that when I put my screen up, I can push it up against the wall and coat that. Other people also put the battens against the wall, which is perfectly fine. I'm going to use the Azicol Z1 Gel Cure emulsion for this video. However, we often suggest the Screensol QT emulsion, which is really great general purpose emulsion, and it's slightly cheaper. In order to coat that screen with emulsion nice and evenly, we're going to use this scoop coater. This is the Pro Angle, and it's got its ends already kind of attached, and it's got a sharp edge and a more curved edge for laying down more emulsion. We're going to use this straight edge, and we're going to fill it up just over halfway. As I'm going to coat the flat side of the screen first, I've got that facing towards me and I've got it firmly up against the wall. I've also got my scoop coater ready to go. So I'm going to pour my emulsion now. I've waited for the emulsion to level out in the coater so that it's nice and even. I'm going to hold it up against the mesh and I'm going to tip it quite a lot until that tide line of emulsion hits the mesh all the way across. And then with firm pressure I'm going to pull all the way up. And then at the top I'm going to stop and let the emulsion fall back in the tray a little bit, push in and then lift straight back. The great thing about this coater is that if there were any beading along the edges, it would scoop it up for us. So that's nice and shiny and it's ready to do the other side. So again, I can prop my screen up, wait for my emulsion to be level in that trough, and then this time I'm gonna push it in quite quickly and then wait for that tide to hit the mesh all the way across. And then just let the emulsion fall back, push in and then lift straight back, and it should be a really nice coat. While we're still in the darkroom, I want to get that emulsion back in the pot as quickly as possible using my silicone spatula. So I can just pour it and scrape out as much as possible. I'm going to clean that off straight away with some water and a sponge. To dry the screen, we put them in a rack and we lay them flat side down so the emulsion falls to that side of the screen. It's important that this room is quite clean so there isn't dust flicking up into the emulsion. So that can just stay there until it's touch dry. Once our screen is completely dry, we're ready to expose our artwork onto the mesh. We're using a metal halide exposure unit which we have in our studio. This is quite an extreme version of exposure units, but you can get much smaller ones on the market. We've also got a handy resource for figuring out how much light and time to expose your screens. That's called the exposure calculator and it's on our website as a free download. The most important thing to think about is we're exposing the mesh and the emulsion to rich UV light source to harden it. I've got my film positive ready from earlier and I think I'm going to print this in a central location on my t-shirt. So if I pop that on my glass, it's a positive so I don't need to flip it or anything like that. I can lay my screen on top where I think it's going to print nicely, and then I've got a vacuum blanket. So there's this little wire that helps the vacuum suck out the air so that there's really close contact between my film, my glass, and then there's no undercutting of that light on my exposure. So that's going to be really crisp. So I'm going to pull this down, put the vacuum on, and then I'm ready to hit expose. I didn't tell you our exposure times on purpose because yours are going to be different. The way you're going to work those out is you could use a free template like the one we have on our website called the exposure calculator, and that will help you figure out how long to expose your screen for. And it's going to be variable on the emulsion, distance, and lots of different things. Two really quick, easy things to look out for. If you're washing your screen out and it's quite slimy or the emulsion just falls off, you haven't let the UV harden the emulsion long enough, so you need to up your exposure time. On the other hand, if you can't wash out your emulsion, it might be that you've exposed your screen for too long, or the light has got through your film positives and it's exposed the emulsion too quickly. So in that case, you would reduce your exposure time. To start washing out my screen, I'm going to lightly wash it on either side. I've let that screen soak for about 30 seconds. I'm going to wash it out more thoroughly now, but I'm going to do it on the flat side of the screen where it's strongest, so that stencil can really take this pressure of me rinsing it out. It should just fall out quite easily without too much stress. I can tell that was a good exposure because the emulsion isn't slimy and it rinsed out really nicely without too much force having to be applied to that. So that just needs to dry and then we're ready to print. If there's any part of exposing these screens that you can't quite do in-house yet, for example, you might not have the equipment or the space to do it, we do actually offer a service where we send out pre-exposed screens to people ready to print with, which might be useful in the short term as you build up your equipment and your technical know-how. In this part of the video, we're actually going to start screen printing. I'm going to show you all about print technique, squeegees, how to set up your area, also adhesives, and really importantly, how to cure those shirts. Let's start with our printing press options. So what I mean by that is how we're going to hold the screen in place so that it hits the print area in the same place every single time. So the most basic way to do this, and this is especially popular with paper printing and flat stock items, is just a pair of hinge clamps. So those would be screwed into a board, and you can even give yourself a little bit of height to put the piece of paper or even garment underneath there and give you a little bit of height for your printing. It just holds your screen in place and allows you to have two hands in order to place the item and then print that garment. So that is definitely one of the most basic and cheapest entries into the printing. When you start printing t-shirts, this is probably one of the best options to get you started, especially with single colour images. So this is called a single arm press. It has a board which is called a platen, and that is where we dress the shirt, and it's also got, if I turn this round you can see from the side, it's holding the screen in place so that it hits every time in the same place. It's also got a little adjustment there for off contact, and it just means that we can do some basic single colour screen printing with a piece of kit that costs around £150. There's going to come a point where you need to print multicolour images onto those shirts, and you need to do that by building up the layers. So a carousel is definitely going to be needed for that type of thing. This is quite a heavy duty carousel, but you can get them as having 4 heads, which means you can print up to 4 colours, and also they come with different formations of how many platens they have. So this is the M&R Cruiser, and it can hold 6 screens, so 6 colours, and it can also hold 4 t-shirts at a time, so you can really print rapidly with this kind of kit. This is definitely in the professional leagues, but there are so many carousels out there that you're going to be able to find one for your budget. As this is just a single colour image, I just need to load the one screen into my carousel. So I can just lower my head, pop it in. Now let's look into how I get that registered. As you can see, I've drawn some guidelines onto my platen, including a neckline, which is really handy for gauging how far this print is going to hit onto the garments. I will now use my film positive and measure where that's going to hit onto the platen. This is one of the most simple ways of registering. So I'm going to tape all this down and then I'm going to line it up to that screen. So we're now ready to line up the image on the screen to the acetate. I can lower the screen and then just make some little adjustments until I can keep pushing the screen down and making sure that it's perfectly lined up with the acetate that's stuck to that platen. Now I can just tighten that. And that'll be ready to go. A really important consideration for your printing is called your off contact. And what I mean by that is the distance between your garment or paper substrate and the bottom of the mesh. Because when you're printing, you want the mesh to come into contact with the garment and then snap back up. This can only be achieved if you've got a nice high tension mesh. If you have a saggy mesh, then it's not going to snap back, it's going to blur your image as you're printing. So I'm going to demonstrate the off contact by coming in and giving you a little bit of a close-up, but essentially it's about a pound coin's height away from the platen to the underside of the screen, because you literally want it to snap back. Once we have our screen arranged, you're going to notice there's still areas of open mesh around the edges of the frame. That could potentially allow ink to get onto your t-shirt if you're not careful. So what we can do is use a screen tape, which is essentially a low adhesive, low tack tape, to block off all those areas all around. And so I'm just going to show you how I do that. I've got a tape dispenser and I'm going to give myself some lengths of tape. I'm going to kind of semi-fold it in half, push it against the mesh and then into the edges, all the way around. You could also mask off any registration marks if you were doing multicolour images at this point as well. Okay, so now the only ink that can pass through my screen is the area of open mesh where I've exposed my design. There are some different types of tapes available. So for example, there's the PMI tape, which has two separate areas. This one's got adhesive on it and this one doesn't. That would mean you can peel it off really quick and easy. Some people also use packing tape, but I'd probably advise against that because it can leave residue on your screen, which can just make cleanup a little bit tricky. So this white tape is relatively inexpensive and it does a really great job. Now we have our screen all registered, I can just take off this film positive and this tape and set that aside. It's really essential now that we think about how to stick down that t-shirt. So one of the most conventional ways of doing it is with a spray adhesive. To protect the platen, you might want to put on a palette mask. This is essentially like a giant piece of masking tape, and you can draw your registration lines on top of that and then give it a spray, and that will hold down your garment. The alternative to this kind of palette mask and the spray is kind of an all-in-one method. So this is called dual tack palette adhesive. And what you do is you lay it down, and it's like a double-sided tape. So you take the top layer off and it's already got its adhesive there to hold down your shirt as you're printing. And then that'll hold it for quite a few shirts, and you just rub off any lint that may have built up and you're ready to go again. So this is how we apply the adhesive, the spray adhesive, to that platen area. You want to go from a little bit of a distance and try and get it quite even. Now you would be ready to load up your shirt. I'm now going to give you the rundown on the squeegees. So the most important part of a squeegee is the blade. So they come in different hardnesses, and that means basically this flexibility, and they often color code them. So this red one that I've got here is the softest blade, and that's going to lay down a lot more ink. That might be useful for laying down thick deposits of white ink onto black garments, for example. The next one is the one that I go to the most often, and this is the medium blade durometer. In this case it happens to be this green one, and it's a bit less flexible, and it's going to lay down a normal deposit of that ink. So I'd use that for coloured ink onto garments. The final one is very rarely used by garment printers, but it might be used for laying down very, very fine deposits of ink in such cases such as halftone printing. There's hardly any flexibility in there, and it is a very, very hard blade. Next, let's talk about those handles, because you can get lots of different handles. What you're looking for is something that's comfortable. So this is very common with the wooden handles, where they're kind of sculpted to your hand. The disadvantage to a wooden handle is that when you're cleaning it, you might make it a bit sticky when you take the varnish off, but they are a good entry level into the printing. Then you've got these ones. This is like a metal handle. It looks like it's ergonomic, but actually when you're printing with that for a long period of time, it is a heavy blade and it's more difficult. This one is particularly made for automatic presses, so they can really clamp down on that bit of metal. I'll show you my favourite ones. I found that these ones are really, really good. They're lightweight, but they're also sculpted to your hand, and they clean up well because it's metal, so there's no varnish or anything like that to worry about. Also, it's important to make sure that your blade is very tightly clamped all the way along, and you don't have too much like dangling off each edge. So that one would be quite easy to replace, so that's probably my highest recommendation. Finally, we have these ones that are becoming really popular. They're the easy squeegees. So in this case, they're a little bit difficult to store with your other squeegees, so that might be something that might put you off. But they do technically mean that you don't have to have as much strength in your wrists, because you're using more of your arm strength. Another advantage is that the blade isn't screwed in, so you could technically clean that off, flip the blade, and then you've got a nice sharp edge to print with again. So you're going to have to do a bit of trial and error, but there's my rundown on the squeegees. Let's talk about the two most common ink types for printing. So you have water-based ink and plastisol. Plastisol is most commonly used in the garment decoration industry because it's very easy to work with. It can't dry in the screen, and it's also quite easy to cure and dry and get those prints running off that press quickly. The alternative is the water-based ink. So water-based ink is easier to clean up. However, it is technically more difficult to print with because you will have some drying in of that ink into the mesh, which just means you have to be a little bit quicker and more prepared when you're printing. And also it leaves a nice hand-soft feel onto that garment, so there are advantages there. When we're thinking about which one to go for, people are often swayed towards the water-based when they start out because they don't need as much curing equipment, such as flash dryers and conveyor dryers that you would need for plaster printing. Today I'm going to demonstrate using a black water-based ink. That's because this is the most common ink that people start out screen printing with. Just before I put the ink on, it's really important to have your stack of garments ready to load quite quickly, and also be prepared as to where you're going to put these garments when they're drying. I'm just going to load up that screen with some ink. So I've got my spatula, and we actually work with quite a lot of ink, and then once you're finished you're going to scoop most of it back in, so be quite generous at this stage. I'm going to load the ink the entire length of the squeegee area and make sure that it's loaded wider than the image. So I'm ready to print with that now. The first thing I do is get my squeegee covered in some ink so that it glides across the surface of that screen. The next thing is I raise the screen off the surface of the garment. So what I'm trying to do is load that open mesh area with ink. This is called your flood stroke. So I can build a wall up just before the image area, and it's just the weight of the squeegee, and it's a light pull from the center of the squeegee all the way over the image, and you can go beyond the image a little bit. Now it's time to put the screen right down and then go back to the top, and then just before your print stroke you can push down and you can feel that platen underneath. So now you've got your pressure correct. Your angle is just going to be about 45 degrees, or before the squeegee blade starts to buckle underneath itself, because we're going to shear that ink through the mesh. So I'm pushing down and I'm going to pull it towards myself and go beyond the image to get a really nice print. I can now lift up and have a little check of that. It looks really nice and crisp. If you did want to put in another layer, what you can do is basically use a hairdryer to make it just a little bit touch dry really quickly. Then you can go ahead and do another print. In between those prints, you can keep your mesh flooded, and that'll just give you a little bit more time where that water-based ink isn't drying into that open mesh. Because your garment is stuck down at this point, and this is nice and tight, you can actually go and do another layer, flood that, and then you've got a really nice dense deposit of ink, and that shirt's ready to take off and get your next one on there quick. As soon as you finish printing with that water-based ink, it's important to get it back in the tub and get that cleaned up, because water-based ink can really stain in that mesh. So this is something I'm going to do right now. If you're printing onto paper, you don't need to worry about curing that ink. You can essentially just let it air dry. But however, we've been printing onto garments, so we need to make sure that these are wash safe. There's a couple of ways to do it. We have a conveyor dryer, so we're going to pop that on the conveyor belt. However, you can also use a heat press to get that ink cured. Hopefully now you have a big stack of shirts all freshly printed and cured. The next thing we're going to do is get those screens reclaimed, ready for your next job. Now you've finished printing those shirts, you can actually reclaim this screen back to new by removing the emulsion chemically. So I'm just going to run you through that whole screen reclamation process now. It's important to remove the ink off your screen before you do all your reclaim, and that's just so that you don't spread ink all over your booth and all over your equipment. So with Plastisol ink, there's designated Plastisol ink removers, and they're chemically different from the water-based ink removers, and sometimes if you're quick enough you can actually just remove the water-based ink with a sponge and a little bit of water in a bucket. I'm about to use my dip tank to do my reclaim, but before I do that I don't want all this tape floating around in there, so I'm going to take that off. I'm just going to dip my screen in the solution. So in there is water and there is also emulsion remover. You can do this by hand with a bucket and some emulsion remover concentrate and just apply it with a brush, and that's pretty much the same. This is just a little bit less labour intensive. I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes and then it's ready to rinse off. The screen has had 2 minutes in the dip tank, so it's definitely ready for me to spray off now. So I'm just going to put my power washer and I'll rinse it all off. I can follow that up with a degrease now to make sure there aren't any chemical residues on that mesh. So it's the same as before, a little spray of the screen degreaser and rinse it off and we're ready to go. Now the screen is all clean and degreased, we're ready to store it in a nice, dry, clean area. Then next time we come to do our screen prints, we're ready to go again with a fresh screen. Thank you so much for following along on this mini course. We really appreciate any reviews and feedback that you might have. Don't forget to follow us on all those other social channels like YouTube and Instagram. And also, just good luck with your printing, and I hope it goes really well. Hey, it's Jessie from Squidgen Ink, and in this course I'm going to demonstrate how to expose screens with photosensitive emulsion and film positives. I'm also going to help you determine your own personal exposure times and walk you through any troubleshooting you might have when it comes to exposing screens. In this course we'll cover preparing your artwork for exposure, coating and drying your screens, the method of exposing screens with photosensitive emulsion, exposure unit types, how to find your exposure time, washing out your design, how to know if your exposure is perfect, and lastly, troubleshooting poorly exposed screens. When taking this course, you have full access to our exposure calculator, which you can print at home and helps you determine your own exposure times. By the end of this course, you'll have all the knowledge you need to get screen printing and have perfectly exposed screens. A good quality exposure starts with quality films, and they need to be 100% black, and not only black, but they need to be opaque. They need to stop the light from reaching the photosensitive emulsion. So even though these two are black, there's only one of these that's actually going to work as a good exposure for screen printing. The first positive I have here is printed with black ink, but there's not enough deposit of the black ink to be able to block the light. An easy way for you to see whether your positives are strong enough is if you were to hold your hand behind them, you can see the profile of your hand moving behind them. So the light is still getting through and your hand is casting a shadow through there. So that's just an easy indication to see that it's not very good. Whereas this one, I can move my hand behind it and I can't see it at all. So this one is very likely to be strong enough to block the light from reaching the screen during the exposure. In order to obtain this nice rich film positive, I'm using an inkjet Epson printer. I'm also using an all black ink system. So by that I mean, technically this has 5 different ink cartridges, and normally they'd be used for CMYK, lots of different colours. However, I've filled all my ink cartridges up with black ink, so that I'm just laying black over black, and it's really dense. I'm also using something called a RIP software. So this is in between the computer and the printer, and it just tells the printer how much ink to deposit onto the film, so that it's very dense. And I can manipulate halftones and how black and how much ink is being deposited on my film, so I can get the richest, most dense positive possible. Let's jump onto the computer to show you what I mean by that. I'm going to be using Adobe Illustrator to output my films. So on this I have my Blind Maggot logo, and the first thing I need to check before I output my films is that the color mode of the document is CMYK. So I can check that by pressing File, going down to Document Color Mode and making sure CMYK color is checked. That just means that it's going to output as CMYK printing, and it's going to be ideal for our film positive. The next thing I need to check is that this is actually pure black and not just a very dark grey. So I can do that by selecting a part of the image, going up and pressing Select, Same, Fill Colour and Stroke, and hopefully it selects all of your image with the same black. Then I can double check in this little swatch here, this little fill swatch, and that will bring up my colour picker, and that will identify the colour that's in the image at the moment. So it is all the zeros at the moment in this little hex box, which is perfect. Often you'll get it where it looks very dark and it looks it looks very black, but it is in fact actually just a dark grey, and that would be a combination of letters and numbers in the hex box. So we just want to drag that all the way down on the colour picker, right the way to all the zeros, and press OK to make sure that it's going to be a very opaque black when printed. We can also check the size of the positive at this point, but it all looks very good and ready to output. I'm actually going to be using a RIP software in between the computer and the printer, and that just gives me the options to deposit more ink. It also allows me to apply halftones if needed, but in this occasion I just wanted to print a solid black colour, so I can press Command P or print, and you can just see here that the printer is running through the AccuRip and then onto my Epson inkjet. I'm ready to press print and output my film. In order to get a good exposure on your screens, it's important to degrease and have your screens 100% dry before coating. We're using a dual cure emulsion, and it happens to be the Azicol Z1. This has a diazo mixture which we mix up with distilled water and we add to the emulsion to make it sensitized. We like to use this one because it's resistant against lots of different inks, but you can choose an emulsion that's right for your setup when asking your supplier which emulsion to get for you. It's important for everyone to have a good scoop coater, and this is the best one we've tried. It's called the Pro Angle, And the reason it's good is because it's got these extended lips here which pick up any of the extra beading along the edge of your coat. That just means your screens dry quicker and that the application of the emulsion on the mesh is very nice and smooth. We like to coat our screens once on each side and to dry them nice and flat. That just means that the emulsion encapsulates the mesh and it always gives us a really good, clean, level exposure that we can trust. Another important thing when it comes to drying your screens after they've been coated is that the screen lies flat on the mesh is very nice and smooth. We like to coat our screens once on each side and to dry them nice and flat. That just means that the emulsion encapsulates the mesh and it always gives us a really good, clean,